I gave when I gave the official presentation. So let me see here. Oh no. Oh. So I'll say, I mean, I guess I don't know how much Tim has told you about the background of the building. As far as once it was decommissioned by the Navy, Parks took it over. I think that's probably a misconception because they really didn't do anything with it. It has been just vacant since 2009, when the Navy left and the city didn't really quite know what to do with it. Let's see, I think this is the presentation I want.
I do have a copy of the, it doesn't have a title on here, the Shelby Naval Commons Training Facility Redevelopment March 2021 paper.
Oh, okay, so the business plan that we put together.
Yeah, it says project, the
It's a Word document, or?
Yes, project team and collaborators.
Yes, yeah. Yeah. So that's the full written plan that the presentation, which apparently is downloading to my computer, and so it might take a minute.
No problem.
We worked with the Center for Nonprofit Management here in Nashville. They have this program called the Innovation Catalyst Program. And so they help nonprofits develop businesses or other endeavors that help them create sustained revenue to go back into the mission of the nonprofits. And so Parks had, in maybe 2011, 12, put out a call, an RFP, to redevelop the Naval building. And this was a public call. They got several different proposals. They actually chose one of the proposals, but they could never get off the ground, agree on lease terms, agree on what all the conditions would be. And to some extent, our application for the Innovation Catalyst program was a little bit based on that RFP and what the Parks Department had put together. As part of that, I'm sorry, this is just really being really slow to download. But the idea of a mixed use building, where we're coming at it as a friends group in partnership with the city, with more of a public benefit angle than just purely commercial for profit. I mean, we would hope to earn a profit ultimately, then to reinvest back into Shelby Park. So the concept that we have developed for what is really a 17,000 square foot building is a mix of uses. I don't know how much you've visited the site and really taken a look at the building until I pull up the presentation. I can't really point you to it, but the prow of the ship on the main floor, which is really the second floor, if you will, it was called the drill hall, and there's a little bit of debate, and maybe some of your folks, it would actually be really great to interview some of the folks that actually occupied the building, because we think it was actually used less for drills and more for events. And that's how we see it, as being an events hall for community events, for rental as well. And we would hope to contract with someone to help us rent out that space on a regular basis, with kind of probably reduced rates for community groups, for nonprofits, and then market rates for, a corporate retreat or a wedding. Then underneath, so, what is facing us right now on your picture is now it's saying interrupted action. Gosh, okay, trying again. There's actually a door to the side on the left, and there's about a 2,500 square foot space in the basement level. And what our plan proposes there is recreation focused retail. So bike rental, kayak rental, maybe general retail you can buy disc golfs. There's a disc golf course, of course, on the hill there.
Right.
Or you can buy picnic blankets, or, you know, things that are focused on use of the park.
Right.
And then the wings, which are sort of the two sections that are on either side of the building, we see developing as primarily office space, small sort of, you know, co-working type office space, sort of a la WeWork, where there would be shared restroom facilities and things like that. The spaces could potentially be artist studios or small retail. Given the traffic in this area and everything, we would likely see it filling with office rental. And then on the east side of the building, which was an addition later on, we see a market restaurant, meaning it would have a sit-down restaurant, but it would also have a grab and go kind of market that you could get a picnic and take your picnic out into the park. And so, and having something that is that is, you know, it's not high end. It is very accessible for the community. It's a barbecue joint or a taco joint or sandwiches that you pick up and can go. But that if you do want to sit down and have a beer or a glass of wine or not, there's also an opportunity for that. So some sort of combination restaurant market, but again, that is very accessible from a price point perspective for the community. Okay, now it's opening up. So here we go. Let me go ahead and
That all sounds terrific.
Share. Oh, let's see. You need to allow sharing for me.
Okay, you're now a co-host. You should be able to share.
Okay. Share. There we go. All right. So yeah, so this is the presentation we gave along at the end after developing that that business plan that you have seen. Overview, of course, of the park, Shelby
Right.
Park, 1,300 acres, right in East Nashville, 2 miles from downtown.
What
The
a
building.
terrific asset for the city, and
Oh
hats off
yeah,
to you guys for everything that's been done there.
thank you. The building, of course, is on the National Register of Historic Places, designed by architect Edwin Keeble, who also designed the LNC Tower in downtown Nashville, Nashville's first skyscraper. But, you know, the current conditions of the building are pretty bad. And in all honesty, the last time I was in there, it was even worse than this picture on the left here.
Yeah.
From, you know, it's a hangout for the homeless as well as teenagers, apparently,
Right.
who are responsible for most of the graffiti. So again, what we envision, Shelby Naval Commons, this is really our concept for this central events hall, is a space for community events, but also beautiful weddings. The office space that would be our business plan. If you read into the details there, it kind of outlines a two-tiered approach where there would be reduced rates for either small businesses or nonprofits and market rate to help, you know, actually help us run the building
Sure.
and maintain the building. And then the restaurant space, which again would have a market where you could potentially grab your food to go. But, you know, one thing I really, really like about this larger picture here is the communal aspect of it. This idea that we create a space where neighbors will end up sitting down at a table together in a post-COVID world, where they can begin to just chat with each other and get to know each other. And the idea behind this building is that we're really trying to bring community together.
Yeah, ride your bike up to the door. Oh, there's the bikes.
Yeah, yeah. And so for the space underneath the building, this recreation focused retail, where you can rent a bike and explore the larger park. This is just a little bit of information about kind of the area. Of course, you know, we're pitching to funders, and we have lots and lots of folks come through the park. 37,000 households within 3 miles, and then we're right next to downtown. I think this is actually an old version of the presentation. But we really see this as a public-private partnership. We are currently in the process of requesting capital funding from Metro, and we would rely on Metro to lease us the property. We would like to be the ones, Friends of Shelby, to be the controlling entity of the building, and not have it be maintained by Metro, but have it be maintained by Friends of Shelby. And that way we take the burden on from the city, but we also are able to keep the profits, again, in order to reinvest them into the park. And
Sure.
as the Friends group, we hope we have the trust of our community to work on their behalf to make this a, not just a project that's about creating revenue, but it's about creating revenue that is for the community. This is just kind of outlining who was involved with our team as we were developing this. We had, of course, the design professionals, we have real estate professionals and community members as well. Yeah, this is definitely an old presentation. The capital costs that we have estimated, which we really hope are quite conservative, is about $7 million. That's for rehabbing the building. That includes the site. That includes design development and engineering, and then tenant build out and funds to get us through about a 6-month lease up period. What we're asking Metro for is to contribute $2.5 million to that project. We believe that that is kind of what we need from the government side in order to go out to funders and say, look, Metro has some skin in the game. They want to see this happen. And then Friends of Shelby will be working, whether it's through individual private donations, business sponsorships, foundation donations, and potentially financing to make this a feasible project. These are just kind of 30,000 foot look at some of the numbers,
Sure.
where what we would generate in rental income, expenses, and then the debt service, and then stabilized cash flow. So this debt service is actually based on only $1 million from the city and $1 million fundraised, and actually financing over $4 million. So I don't think that any bank would actually finance $4 million, but what we wanted to show was that even with a large chunk of this being financed and having to pay debt service on it, that the numbers were still feasible for positive cash flow.
Right.
So in an ideal world, we raise all of the money privately and there is no debt service. Maybe we end up with $1 or $2 million in debt service, but what we really wanted to show was that even with a large chunk, that we were able to have positive cash flow that could, again, be invested back into the park. And so what that means is, even at that very, very conservative level, we would have over $400,000 to invest after 5 years back into the park. And then, there are so many reasons to do this project, as you can obviously imagine the historic value of the property,
Right.
and what it meant for not only folks who worked and were trained here at this facility, but for the city, for the architectural value. There are just so many reasons that we don't want to see this building lost, and it's really like it's now or never, because it's such a state that if we don't do something now, we could potentially lose it.
Right.
And then for us, of course, it's shared experience. It's bringing our community together, creating a space where everyone feels welcome and can begin to break down some of the walls we've all pulled up, and that the pandemic hasn't really helped us with, and we've all just retreated to our homes and retreated to our individual kind of worlds. And parks are this place where everyone is on equal footing, and we want to make sure that that continues and invite that to continue. And then specifically this section of the park is really underutilized, and by activating this building, we increase use of the park, the use of this building, but then we think it will also increase the broader use of the park. Having recreation focused retail will allow people to explore on bike and on kayak where they may not have explored before. It will activate this corner of the park so that there are more eyes on Naval Hill, which has notoriously been one of the areas where we've seen more nefarious activity, if you will. And so this will bring energy, positive energy to an area of the park and the park as a whole. And then, yeah, and that's it. We were only allowed to make a 7-minute presentation. So, what we were hoping to get initially from some funders was some next step money for design development, and so that we could continue to pursue this. Since we made this presentation, we I guess a couple things have happened. We presented to the park board and they approved us to continue to fundraise for this project. And really what that means is that they've given an initial blessing for the concept, that they think that Friends of Shelby is a good partner and that we should be able to go out into the world publicly and say that we are taking on this project and that we are fundraising for it. The next steps that we have taken is we have officially brought on a capital campaign consultant who will be helping us do a feasibility study, helping us explore what all of the funding options are around Nashville and nationally. And then we have hired also, or continued on with an architect that was on our team that helped us develop the business plan to develop a more refined set of building plans, floor plans, and renderings. A couple different, we're going to have an exterior rendering and 3 interior views to do a little bit better job of expressing what our concept is for the building. And we hope to have those ready for a tour with the mayor in March, ahead of this next capital budget for the city. So in an ideal world, we have the city setting aside some amount of capital money for the project that will be a huge help as we start to go out to the foundations and individuals and say, we've already got this base and we want you to come on board. I think the piece that is missing from that presentation that we have talked about as a team is the incorporation of naval history and the history of the building. And we believe there are a lot of public spaces within this building or on the exterior of the building where we can begin to develop that. And we weren't the experts. We didn't have a naval expert on this team when we were putting this business plan together to really kind of think about what that would be. But we absolutely want to do something, whether it's a military timeline or it is commemoration of those lost in battle. There are a lot of ideas, and like I said, we're not the experts to really explore that. We want to engage with groups like yours so that we can continue to explore that. And I think as we move into additional design, we absolutely need to have that at the forefront of our mind of where is that going to go? How can that be incorporated into the building and the grounds as we move forward with the project?
Terrific. You all are certainly masters of the nonprofit fundraising consultant design trade, and that's great. As you can imagine, we have a small group of retired Navy guys who want to build a memorial, and our maturity in nonprofit management is not quite as sophisticated as yours, but we've done all the right things paperwork wise. We have an interested community of people for fundraising for whatever sort of memorial we come to build. We've got a few dollars in the bank, but we have not yet in earnest put forward our effort to raise funds for what will eventually be enough money to build a memorial. So I think we're at, it sounds like you and we are at a similar stage of having an idea. You're probably a little further along in your conceptualization and your plan of action and milestones than we are. We thought we had achieved some sense of where we wanted to be with the top of Naval Hill, and Tim suggested we talk to you all. So I guess what we would be looking at would be a space adjacent to the Naval Reserve Center.
I mean, I honestly, I think it could be done in a number of ways. So I think we're going to potentially have a plaza in the back of the building, so facing up the hill um, toward the top of Naval Hill. And, you know, I could potentially see a number of ways to incorporate something into an outdoor plaza. We will have retaining walls, and that, you know, there could be some sort of something along those retaining walls. There could be something within the plaza itself. I can also see interior to the building, where along the corridor, I guess, if you will, between the main events hall and the restaurant, we want to open up, and really in that area only have offices or whatever on one side, and then have the other side be open with windows. And I think you could, you know, that could be an interesting space to, as you're walking through that hall and you can see the river out the window, to incorporate something. I think there's potentially a lot of different options, and it would be interesting. And it's probably something we should think about within our larger design team. You know, we have architects, we
Sure.
have engineers, having a landscape architect or someone who can help us conceptualize where and what that could become. One question I have for you is, you know, and I don't know a lot about, honestly, naval history, or the history. I mean, I know a little bit about the history of this building, but I'm sure there were folks trained in this building who went into all aspects of naval service, whether they be submarine service or,
Oh, sure.
You know, yeah. And so where do you all, you're the submarine memorial group, but I would think we would probably want to incorporate a broader history as well. And so, you know, I think there's also that to think about, that there's kind of historical interpretation of the Naval Reserve and the building, and potentially memorial, that is either part of that, or you know, incorporated into it, or like, here's what I wonder is, do we need, you know, is someone going to say, well, let's have a memorial also for anyone who died in an aircraft, or on an aircraft carrier, or on other warships, and you know, where do those kind of all come together from your standpoint? I don't know if I
Well,
phrased that right.
getting back to the universe of Navy things, we actually think the submariners are the best part of the Navy, but we understand we understand that there are other parts of the Navy, and we wouldn't suppose to uh, inflict on your project submarines only in the interpretation of naval history and the role of the Reserve Center. We do have some folks who I've talked to who have said they have drilled there, so they have firsthand knowledge of the history of the building, and they probably have contacts of other local folks who have drilled there. So I think we could be helpful in identifying people who have a direct connection with the Naval Reserve Center, and probably helpful in interpretation of the broader Navy picture. Rod,
That would be amazing.
my career, I did 26 years, and the first 10 was as a submariner, and then I was on surface ships, aircraft carriers. So I do have a broader view of the Navy than.
I'm just going to tell him I can't talk right now. So.
I have a broader view of the Navy than just some of my submarine buddies. And we can also probably connect the Navy history elements. You know, there's Navy museums, and there may be pieces of the USS Nashville or the predecessor USS Tennessee in a Navy warehouse somewhere that might be put on exhibit. Those kinds of things that could be brought in to accentuate the history of the building relative to Nashville and Tennessee and Navy nomenclature.
Yeah.
In terms of memorials, you know, we're looking at having a self-contained memorial to the 87 men who were lost in submarines in war and peace. And our monument would name each of them with their hometown, their Navy rank or rate, and their date of loss. So
Okay.
87 times 4 lines of stuff, that's how big of a memorial we would be looking at. We would probably be looking at, you know, and if the plaza and retaining walls was conducive to, from time to time, having ceremonies of some sort, um, that would be something we would be interested in. And maybe on the uphill side of the
Yeah.
retaining wall, a flagpole that could be used for ceremonial purposes. We like the idea that it just speaking on the face of it at the moment, that it would be contained within the larger project for purposes of avoiding vandalism, etc. We were concerned that at the top of Naval Hill, it was unguarded out there on its own, and we didn't have the context of nefariousness. But you know, that's always a concern whenever you are dealing in the public context.
Yeah.
Um, to exclude other memorials, I think, depending on how this is laid out, and I don't see in the landscape of organizations in Nashville, for example, there are some nonprofits that advocate for the Navy around the country, and there's not one in Nashville. So there's not a big groundswell here of organizations that would probably want to build a memorial to this. You know, I can't even imagine. It's not like the USS Nashville was sunk, fortunately, or you know, I don't know if you're aware that there's over in Bicentennial Park, there is the prow, which is the bow section of the USS Tennessee from the 1890 era. So that's really the only public connection to Tennessee stuff. I guess we'd have to look at what the design was, and if there could be room for expansion, that would be fine. We don't, and I'm at risk of speaking for my board here, we wouldn't want it to be totally exclusionary of others who wanted to, say, the Friends of the USS Tennessee, or you know, whatever organization wanted to put up a plaque. If the design of the plaza or wherever the memorial was going to be lent itself to that, I don't think there would be a problem.
Gotcha.
Sorry to ramble there. I was just
No, that makes sense. Yeah. So, you know, from a timing perspective, this is still obviously several years out. You know, the best thing that could happen is getting capital funding from the city this year. That would shoot us absolutely in the right direction. And you know, I would hope we would know if that's going to happen by the middle of the year, at the latest, really. You know, not to say that if it doesn't happen within this capital budget, that it couldn't happen in a later capital budget. I would love at some point to begin to think about how we can connect with some of the folks that you know that did drill in the building, and begin to collect those stories and understand better the use of the spaces, and you know, how folks interacted in the building. I think it would be great to record some of those histories. And you know, I think even from a very selfish standpoint of fundraising for the larger building, to have some of those stories and videos, clips of folks talking about their experience and how important it is to preserve that history is huge. It would be wonderful.
Well, if it would be helpful, if we join our efforts here, and I think our board is probably interested in doing that. We're all in a bit more of a hurry than several years, but I suppose if this is the
Yeah,
best plan, none of us are getting any younger.
yeah.
I'm probably one of the younger guys in the group, but if it would be helpful in the joint project promotion for fundraising, et cetera, for us to record or write down some of the recollections of submariners specific to the submarine memorial element of the joint project, we'd be more than happy to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
These guys love to talk.
And I do wonder too, if some of them might have pictures of the building, of them in the building through the years.
Yeah, and have you all checked with the larger Navy for historical context? There's a Navy historical, an official active duty component, and then there's the Naval Institute Press, and there's probably in the National Archives photos, et cetera.
And I need to circle back with the National Archives, because when we had originally reached out to try and get the old plans for the building, it was the height of 2020 COVID, and they weren't in the office, and there was the only way to find the plans was to be, dig them out, and so I definitely need to circle back with them. If you would send me an email with any organizations that you think we should reach out to for any types of information about the building, because I think, again, you would know better than us about what are all the different naval focused organizations throughout Tennessee or the country.
Okay. I've got a friend who's the editor-in-chief of the Naval Institute at the Naval Institute, and he's probably more attuned to the ins and outs of history.
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
So you mentioned timeline. You mentioned design and planning. How would you envision us fitting into the team and the planning process and the design?
I think as we're getting to the point of bringing on a full design team to, where we've got initial funding, which, I mean, the design itself for this building is going to cost several $100,000 when you consider all the design needed for the site, mechanical, electrical, everything that goes into the building. But that we either have some folks with your organization as advisors, maybe, once the design team comes to present to our board and to other stakeholders that we have assembled as part of our team, that you basically are part of that team, where you can react to, provide information of ideas for memorials, and how, show those examples to a design team and talk about your goals. And then as the design team begins to think about different conceptual ways to include those, then you're there to be able to react to those and provide comments. So that's how I would see it. I'm not quite sure on the timeline of when we will get there.
Okay.
We will, again, a lot of this with the city funding is very important. And if that comes along, I see things moving quicker. And that's a little bit of a wait and see here this spring.
Okay. I noticed in the document, Fabian Bedney is from the Office of the Mayor is on the team group.
So he sat in on our on the whole project, and really he didn't offer a ton of advice besides just listening in and making sure we weren't going off the rails. We have presented to some folks, in addition to Fabian, in the mayor's office, who seem excited about the idea of the public-private partnership of creating a sustainable a resource for sustained funding for the park system. So, you know, they seem to like the idea in concept. And again, we've put in this request. I'm hoping to hear back from our council person soon about trying to get the mayor out to this building. We also feel like it is right up his alley. He loves historic preservation. He loves turning a profit for the city, you know, making a good deal. And he loves parks. So we really
what's
think
not to
he
like?
would be a great, yeah, we think he'd be a great champion for this project. And, you know, he's got 2 more years in office. So hopefully we'll get this funding through before he leaves office.
Great. Well, Fabian, in addition to this submarine memorial group, I also run an educational group called the Tennessee World Affairs Council. We do bring in speakers and work with high school kids, help people try to understand what's going on in the crazy world we're in.
Yeah.
And Fabian is on our board there, so
Oh, great.
that way.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Rebecca, what more do you need to know from us? I've got some more things on my to-do list now, and I will share this with our board and get a sense of you know, whether this is the right direction for us.
Great. Well, let's stay in touch. I can let you know how things continue to let you know how things are progressing throughout the spring. And if you can, like you said, send some of those resources or connect us with some folks. I'm probably going to want to try and find someone, think about how we do interviews or how we do videos. Maybe there's a series of questions, or we just need to think through that. But maybe on the first step is just to see who might be interested from your group about talking about their experience.
Yeah, I know the Library of Congress has a program on documenting veterans' experiences. I'll take a look in there and see if there's any keywords for Naval Reserve International.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Well, thanks so much. We will be in touch. Oh, if there are any walkthroughs with the mayor or any others, I would be, and maybe another board member or two, just to, you can't see much beyond the fence.
Yeah. Not a problem. Okay, I'll keep you posted.
Keep us in mind for that.
Okay.
Great. Thanks so much. Appreciate your time again.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.